everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video on this little gun here. This is the Zenith Z-5P from Zenith Firearms. As you may be able to tell from looking at it, if you are well versed in the gun world, this is essentially a Zenith, an MP5K. I hesitate to call it an MP5K clone simply because, in my opinion, Zenith is as close as you can get to HK without it being stamped HK. For those of you who don't know, H&K used to have the Mke factory in Turkey doing the actual HK guns. However, they decided to basically bring all the manufacturing back into Germany. However, Turkey maintained all the manufacturing equipment, all the HK trained engineers. So again, this is, as far as you know, as near as makes no difference in HK MP5K. I have well over 1,000 rounds to this myself. I actually got it used and it had 2,000 rounds prior to that. So this thing has seen quite a bit of use, and so hopefully we'll be able to bring some interesting talking points your way and let you decide if this might be something that might be right for you. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I'll just go ahead, roll in some footage of me shooting this thing and maybe some other people shooting this thing, and then we'll jump into the specs on this pistol. And in case anyone's wondering, the little messenger bag I was using here is from OreGear. It's kind of been home to that Zenith Z5P for a while now. It works perfectly, maybe too perfectly. It even has a Velcro area in here where I usually keep the mags, but the Velcro panel in here would be perfect for some MP5 mag carriers. But anyway, I thought people might ask about this bag. If you're interested in this one, I'll be doing a review on it in the near future. And if you want to buy one, I do have a coupon code for OreGear. I believe it's ORI15 for 15% off, but all that stuff will be in the description. But again, might be a good pairing for your Zenith Z5P. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take this side of the screen to run down a lot of the numbers, a lot of the specs about these Z5Ps from Zenith Firearms, just because I don't want to be listing off a bunch of numbers at you that most people probably don't care about. And these are all numbers you can get from the product page, so but I'll have them there for reference. If you want, go ahead and pause it, check it out. I'm going to go ahead and just run down how this thing is configured, kind of as it comes from the factory versus what I've done to it since then. Now, when my friend got it from Zenith, it came with just the flat end plate back here with the little sling loop, and then it came without. It came with a top rail up here, as I'll show you later, and then it just came with a smooth little grip down here. No flashlight, no M-lock rail down here, no brace. However, you can now, they've added this to their lineup, get a Zenith Z5P that is configured almost identically to this one. I just think they have a slightly different optic mount up here, so you can't have the flashlight mounted up here, but they do have, I even believe it's Midwest Industries hand guards to kind of round out your Z5P. And honestly, that's a good thing, because Midwest Industries would be my recommendation, and that's what I have here for both the optic mount and the handguard, in addition to the QD plate back here for the brace, all of which have been working excellently. But other than that, as it comes, you have pretty much the pistol itself. It does come with a few Mke magazines. This specific model has both the tri-lug mount up here as well as the threads for 1/2 by 28, I believe, whatever that standard 9mm thread pitch is. Thankfully, they didn't do that super crazy European 9mm thread pitch. This is the stuff that's going to be very easy to find a suppressor to adapt to, and I have shot it suppressed using these threads, which are nice and concentric. I have not actually yet used a tri-lug mount, although I do plan on testing one out in the future. So really what you have here is an MP5K in all its glory, however slightly cheaper than what you would get from HK. So let me go ahead and show you what else this one came with, and then explain to you what yours might come with. So when my friend ordered it, it came with this really nice hard case here. However, if you were to buy one now, they've replaced this hard case with just a soft case, which is kind of lame, to be completely honest with you guys. But you know, a soft case is better than no case whatsoever. It also came with a cleaning kit, which I typically don't use. And then this is the optic rail that it came with. Mounts in the same way as the other one, but again, it did not have the forward part where I've mounted that flashlight. And then you have, if I can hold it up here, the cutout for the Z-5P, cutout for the magazines right here. And then down in this little section is where I throw the extra end plates. This one is for an AR-15 buffer tube. So if you wanted to put like a shockwave brace or any of the other AR-15 SP tactical braces, you can do it using that method. Just underneath it. So now that I've run over kind of how this thing is configured and what you can expect with one from the factory, I'm going to go ahead and just run down the features of MP5Ks in general, just because I'm sure a lot of people probably don't have a lot of hands-on experience with these, and so hopefully this will be some useful information. So we'll go ahead and start from the rear here. This one has kind of the castle turret style of rear sight, which actually works really well for this. You have 4 different apertures, which theoretically should be basically different widths for kind of quick target acquisition, as well as depths. So kind of find your personal preference. It may affect your point of impact. However, I have not noticed that immensely, just because once I found one aperture that I liked, I kind of stuck with it, and it's worked for everything within from 0 to 100 yards. That's as far as I've shot this thing, and kind of that's all as far as I feel like I would need to shoot something like this. So that is good. I haven't had to adjust it for windage. It's been dead on, and this thing is actually surprisingly accurate, as I'll cover later. Going on to the front post up here, I'll have to take some pictures just so I can keep this thing pointed in a safe direction. But you have just your standard HK front post. Works very well. For what this is, it is perfectly adequate. The safety on this thing is kind of awkward. It's one of my least favorite things about this, ergonomically speaking. Using just a regular firing grip, my little Donald Trump hands are too small to be able to get my thumb on that safety, so I really have to break my grip around and hit it. It's not quite as bad as like an AK-47 where you have to come up and sweep something off, but it's definitely not as ergonomic as, say, an AR-15 or like a SIG MPX or even a Scorpion Evo for that matter. There are aftermarket ones, but as you'll learn very quickly with one of these, pretty much everything aftermarket for HK stuff is really, really expensive, and the safeties are included in that. Kind of sticking in this general area, you can see that this entire lower section is all one piece, so you cannot replace the pistol grip on this unless you buy a different trigger housing. Now, thankfully, this is not the serialized part, the receiver up here is, so you can swap these out without having to fill out extra paperwork, but it's not going to be a cheap thing to replace, but you can get slightly different ones. Now that said, I have found it to be perfectly comfortable and perfectly shootable as is. I have not felt the need to replace this. It just feels really good and has a very similar grip angle to, you know, your regular standard AR-15s. The trigger on this thing is actually not that bad in my opinion. The pull weight is not light by any stretch of the imagination, but it does have a pretty good brake on it. It's a pretty short travel overall. There's the reset and the brake. So again, I've only shot this thing out to 100 yards, but it is very easy to do it with this. And then the trigger definitely helps with that. Again, you can get aftermarket triggers, but they are going to be insanely expensive. Again, just like most stuff with these. Up here, you do have a paddle style mag release, which is really nice. If you guys have seen the video I did on my Century C308, which is an HK91 set me style rifle, it does not have that paddle mag release, and it makes it very, very difficult to do mag changes. This one, very simple. Let me grab a mag real quick so I can demonstrate. Here I got one of the KCI mags. Been using these a ton with this, and they've been working great. These are the Gen 2s. I have a dedicated review as well as a torture test on these. But you press in, and if you want to, you can hit the mag release right here and pull it out, which is my preferred method. And then there is a little mag release button right up here. So if you wanted to, you could pull it out that way. I don't know why you would want to. When you have that paddle, which is perfectly ambidextrous, right hand, left hand, it's going to work for you. Now, it does have a roller delay blowback operating system, like a lot of these HK designs. The MP5, again, HK91, you know, the, what is it, 53, 93, whatever the 5.56 version is. And it is a very, very adequate operating system. It has been insanely reliable for me, not only in this, but even in my C308. So you have this charging handle up here, or cocking handle, which you can lock back by pulling back and rotating it up into this little locking notch right here, if we can see there. And as you can see, this Midwest Industries optic rail is cut out, so you can still lock that back no problem. And typically, the way people are going to recommend operating this thing is when you run empty, lock the bolt back because it does not have last shot hold open, pull the old magazine out, put the new magazine in, and then the most fun part is the HK slap, where you just slap that cocking handle down and it'll put another round in the chamber and you're ready to go. This has been, again, exceptionally reliable for me with the over 1,000 rounds I have through it already. I have had almost zero issues. And the issues I have had have been all ammo related, but I'll touch on that more later. Even with dirt and gunk and junk getting in here, not only with it being dirty and shooting suppressed, but with the magazine torture test I did, it is still running exceptionally reliably, and this operating system has a lot to do with that. It does also have a fluted chamber, so if you are not used to the HK fluting that you have, again, on this C308, HK91 style stuff, you'll see these weird lines on your case, and that's because the chamber itself has little flutes cut into it. I've heard mixed things about why those are there, and take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, but my understanding is it is there to help improve reliability, because as those gases are expanding, that basically helps kind of break the seal of the round in the chamber, which eases and aids in the extraction. And I have found it seems to help with the reliability when you start getting gunk into that chamber. If you were to have a perfectly cylindrical chamber, as soon as dirt or mud starts getting in there, it's going to keep you from getting the rounded chamber. But with those flutes, it gives fouling a little bit of an extra place to go. So again, has increased reliability in my own experience when I've gotten dirt and mud introduced into it during the torture tests. Now, because this is a roller delay blowback system, this is not a gas tube or a gas block. As I mistakenly said in my C308 video, I refer to this as the gas block, and that's because I'm so used to front sight block and gas block being synonymous. However, that is not the case on this or this C308. This is just here as a housing for your cocking handle, and nothing more than that. It is a pure blowback operating, or not pure blowback, roller delay blowback operating system. Now, some of the models are going to have a threads up here or the tri-lug up here. They do have ones that are perfectly flat, but the Z-5P is going to have both the tri-lug and the threads, which is really nice because, again, when I shot this thing suppressed, my friend did not have a tri-lug adapter because he didn't have anything with a tri-lug on it. So we were still able to add it to the, again, 1/2x28 threads up here, which were perfectly concentric and made shooting this thing suppressed a breeze. And I gotta say, these are really, really good guns to shoot suppressed. So let's go ahead and shoot this thing some more, run some more footage of us shooting it in front of the camera, and then I'm gonna show you kind of more how this thing operates by taking this thing apart and showing you what the bolt carrier and all that looks like.
That's an accurate little bastard.
Somewhere around there.
Oh, this is a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Watch your trigger.
All right, so obviously we're going to want to go ahead and make sure the gun is clear. So we'll put the magazine and check our chamber. The one thing about HK style pistols or rifles is the chamber is way, way up in there, so you really have to be diligent when you're inspecting the chamber. But we are clear, so I'm going to go ahead and release our cocking handle just because we want to take all the pressure off our brace here. Now this brace makes these pins really, really tight, so I'm going to grab a tool to help aid in this, but I'm going to just go ahead and just press out these two pins back here. And this one up here. Oh man, I'm telling you, this thing is kind of a pain. It's not like this with the other end plates, it's just this brace for whatever reason. Anyway, we'll set those off to the side. They are not captured pins, so you definitely want to make sure you put those somewhere safe. Pull this guy off, and then we'll even just go ahead and take off our pistol grip or trigger housing here by pushing this pin out down here, at which point our whole trigger assembly will be removed, and now we have our receiver, bolt carrier, all that fun stuff. So just by pulling back on the cocking handle, our bolt carrier group and our bolt come out. This thing is really, really filthy. I have not cleaned it once since I got it, and again, I've put over 1,000 rounds through it, including a bunch of rounds through it suppressed, as well as with the torture test getting it all muddy and gunky and dirty. And it's still running reliably. Again, it feels pretty much bone dry at this point, but it's still working. So that's definitely a testament to the reliability of these. But you'll notice right up here what looks like a little roller, and that is because these are the rollers that actually lock it in place when you have a round chambered. So it's flush right now, but when the bolt carrier group and bolt are in place, those pop out and lock into the inside of the receiver. And what that does is it creates a mechanical lock. So when you fire, being a blowback system, it's using the pressure inside the barrel from the gases expanding to press the bolt carrier to the rear. However, you want to make sure it's at a safe pressure before it actually opens up. So that's what these little roller locks are for. They mechanically lock in place, and when the round is fired, those gases have to overcome that mechanical lock before it can actually start pressing the bolt back to the rear. And that little delay makes sure that the chamber is at a safe enough pressure before actually opening up to pull that round out. And again, very, very reliable system, and it prevents you from having to have an enormous weight back here like a pure blowback system would. That's like if you have a high point pistol, why it has that giant block of a slide. It needs that weight because it's a pure blowback. That added weight is what keeps it locked long enough for that chamber pressure to be safe. This uses the little rollers to, again, give it that delay to make it a safe chamber pressure before it actually opens up. Now, I'm not going to break this thing down any further. I will be doing a dedicated cleaning and like a field strip and cleaning video separate to this one. I know this video is going to be long as it is, so I don't want to necessarily take that time to do it. So definitely be on the lookout for that if you're interested. To put it back together, we just need to slide it back into the channel up here. We have our cocking handles locked in the up position, so we'll just push that forward. Go ahead and replace our pistol grip. Drive our pin back in. And then we will place our brace on back here. Again, this one's stiff. I have other things that are not quite as stiff. But alas, here we are. I'll work on that bottom one in a second, or top one in a second. Get our bottom one in. Bottom one seems to go in easier, as you can see there. And I'll just try to press this. Sometimes I gotta pound it in place. And I'm not worried about the finish on this thing. But there we have it. It's all back together. You guys might also notice this eye bolt back here. If you buy current production SB Tactical braces for these, it actually has a QD plate right here. When my friend bought it, it didn't have that. So he put an eye bolt in here as a sling loop, and it actually works really well. Super cheap solution to that problem. Anyway, there you have it. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about this thing. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, should I get the little shorter Zenith Z-5P or should I get the longer version, the more MP5 style version? And I'll explain it this way. I wanted the shorter version. Now, I did get this used, so I didn't have too much of an option, but I was relieved that this is what my friend had when I got this from him, because again, this is the style I wanted. In my opinion, a pistol caliber is a pistol caliber no matter how long of a barrel you're shooting it out of. A 9mm is a 9mm, whether you're shooting it out of a sub 5-inch barrel or whether you're shooting it out of a 16-inch barrel. So this barrel is only slightly longer than a Glock 34, and that's okay to me. I'm getting about the same ballistics as I would get with a handgun. However, I'm getting added stability by increasing the points of contact with this thing and just giving myself a little bit of a heavier platform to shoot at, longer sight radius, all those things that make it a lot easier to shoot from intermediate to slightly longer ranges. Again, I've shot out to 100 yards and it was very easy to do with this. I'm going to be doing a dedicated video comparing a pistol caliber carbine or pistol caliber pistol to a regular style traditional pistol. But suffice to say, there are applications where something like this is going to be more useful than a sidearm, but because no matter how long you make the barrel, it's not a rifle caliber. If I'm going to have a pistol caliber pistol like this, I want it to be as short as possible. So let me talk to you about my experience that I've had with this thing so far. Again, I bought this thing used from a friend of mine. I incorporated a trade as well as some money on top of it. And that's probably the only way I would have gotten one of these, but I'll touch more on that later. But my friend that I purchased this from had, like I said, about 2,000 rounds through it, 1,000 of which I was present for because it was during the Spartan Training Concepts American Rifleman course, where he ran this as his rifle in the class. And if you've seen the video or the after action report that I have on that class, you can tell that those classes are pretty stressful on the guns, and this thing just went through with no issues whatsoever. So I saw this thing go 1,000 rounds, no problem at all. So that was kind of reassuring, but not really that surprising given my experience with these before. Now, in addition to that class, as I may have alluded to, he's put 1,000 rounds through it. According to him, he had no major malfunctions that he could remember when I asked him about it. And again, in the 1,000 rounds plus that I've put through it, the only issues I've had have been ammo related. So let me explain that a little bit more. Magazines on MP5s seem to be very ammo specific in so much as like hollow point style ammunition. When I'm shooting regular round nose, like 115, 124 grain ammo, zero issues across the board. No issues whatsoever. However, once I start getting into flat nose, like 158 grain bullets, or really open hollow points, I start running into failures to feed on the very last round of the magazine. So I have a video with the where I did a review of these KCI mags, where I go a little bit more in depth into this. But I can fill this thing with 30 hollow points, and it'll feed all the top 29, no problem, but it'll do a failure to feed on that last one. Now, part of that is just because there's really no feed ramp in these. It's really relying on the geometry of the bullet and the magazine and the bolt to have everything feed properly. But with those hollow points, because it's a little bit wider, not the traditional geometry of a projectile, it sometimes will cause a failure to feed. Now, that's not only with these KCI mags, it's also with the MKE mags that these come with, which, just as a side note, I highly recommend a $35 to $30 magazine like these KCIs instead of spending $70 for an HK or MKE mag. But anyway, that's kind of a side note. So what I have found as a solution to that is if I do want to have a full subsonic magazine, I'll take a round nose, not a flat nose, but a round nose, like 147 grain bullet first, and then put the rest of the hollow points in, and then it'll feed the whole magazine, no problem. Or if you want, you can put a supersonic round at the bottom, and then you know pretty quickly that you're empty because, again, no last round hold open, and you can pretty easily tell the difference audibly, assuming your hearing is still in good shape, which you might not be after 30 rounds in a firefight. But you can tell the difference between the supersonic round, and so you'll know, hey, I'm empty, I need to lock the bolt back, pull the magazine out, put a fresh mag in, and then I can continue slaying bodies or, putting rounds on range, whatever the situation may be. But again, other than that, other than those hollow point issues, 100% reliability. So what I would recommend is if you do want to carry hollow points in something like this, test it with your magazines and your ammo as you intend to shoot it. Don't just put 3 rounds in, test it, hey, it worked, and then just assume it's going to work all the time. I know it may hurt, but fill a magazine with that carry ammo and make sure it works. If you can afford one of these, you can afford to shoot a magazine of hollow point ammo, but we'll touch on the cost here in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and try to wrap up my thoughts about this Zenith Z-5P. This is a fantastic MP5K clone. Again, I hate to use that word clone because MKE is really high up there. So if you are looking for an MP5, this is definitely the direction I would point you in. I know some people are really excited about the PSA MP5s that they're going to be putting out. I'm not holding my breath on them. I hope they work because at very least, all I hope they do is drive down the cost on quality ones like this one. Again, I can't speak to the quality of the PSA ones because they're not out. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. But these things are, I would say, ridiculously expensive. So if I were to buy a pistol caliber carbine myself, I don't necessarily know that this is the way I would go. However, if I wanted an MP5, this is the way I would go. So let me break that down a little bit more. If you want a Zenith Z-5P configured pretty much like this one, minus this little flashlight mount, with the top rail here, the Midwest Industries handguard, and a brace, you are looking at about $2,200. That is a lot of money. I don't care who you are, $2,200 is a lot of money for a stamped metal receiver with some polymer bits. Now, I get that there's a little bit more to the manufacturing process than that. That is an oversimplification. But $2,200 is a lot of money when you have competitors like the SIG MPX, which is half the price, the Scorpion Evo, which is less than a third of the price, well, maybe a third of the price. And on top of the initial cost of these, again, if you want HK or MKE mags, $70. If you want other end plates back here, or especially braces, you're looking at $200 to $300. If you want optics rails, you're looking at over $100. If you want handguards, you're looking at over $100. Everything about these is expensive. But if you want an MP5, again, this is the way I would go. But if you're looking for just a regular pistol caliber carbine, I would maybe look at a Scorpion Evo. That's just my opinion, but this is easily the most expensive gun in my collection, either currently or ever. I've never bought a gun that costs $2,200, and I would not have bought this one had it not been for the killer deal that I was able to get this thing for. If I were to have my own money to spend on something like this, personally, I would get the Scorpion Evo. But if you really are set on the MP5, because honestly, this is about as sexy as it gets, well, put a can on the front and then it's as sexy as it gets, then you got to pay to play. And again, the Zenith is definitely the company I would direct you to over some of those other clone makers out there, just because the quality is impeccable on these. And again, it's as close as you can get to an HK without it being stamped HK on the side. So if you're willing to spend the money on something like this, you really have a great pistol. Surprisingly accurate. Again, I can make hits without any issue whatsoever at to 100 yards, even standing, as I'm sure you've probably seen in some of the footage here. There are plenty of aftermarket accessories because the HK design is so prolific. So there are plenty of top rails, there are plenty of handguards, plenty of end brace systems or end plates or whatever you want. They're all going to be pricey. There are different pistol grips, but again, they're going to be pricey. There's different cocking handles, but they're not going to be super cheap. Again, if you want something like this, you really got to pay to play. But once you do get it, these things are a hoot to shoot. They are super compact once you get this thing folded up, which you can shoot it folded, no problem. Granted, with slightly less effectiveness, as you would have seen with the brace. And it is very easy to put this in like a little messenger bag or any of the backpacks I own and have people be none the wiser. Granted, now that I've shown you guys that in a video, I'm going to have to find a different way to do it just because people will be onto me now. At least my friends will be onto me. But again, it's a really, really great option. Super reliable, super rugged, super sexy. But the question is, can you afford $2,200 without including, other accessories like magazines or optics or anything else like that? And actually, since I mentioned optics, that's one thing I want to mention. In some of the videos, you'll no doubt have noticed I was shooting a red dot up here, a Vortex Venom. So you can mount optics to these, but it's really not ideal. You're raising it up way high. You're totally eliminating any opportunity of co-witnessing, and you're just adding height, and it makes it so you can't get a cheek weld. You really have to basically get a chin weld to effectively use those red dots. And that is counter to, again, things like the Scorpion Evo, the SIG MPX, that are designed to have optics mounted. This was made before that was really, or not this specific one, but the MP5 design was before that was really the thing to do. So again, you have to weigh all that for yourself, but I think I've beat that horse dead enough. So if you have any experience with any of the Zenith firearms, definitely let me know. I'm really interested, especially their new 5.56 guns. I think those are pretty stinking cool. I will probably never be able to get my hands on another Zenith to review just because, again, they are kind of prohibitively expensive for me. I know that they are really trying to bring in the 308s, like the HK91 style guns, into the country, but I know they're running into some difficulties, so that's kind of on hold. But they do have the 5.56, they do have the 300 Blackout even, and again, they have these 9mm versions, both the MP5K style as well as the traditional MP5 with the slightly longer barrel, if that's more your flavor. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and throw those in the comment section down below. I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can. I am uploading to full 30, so I would definitely recommend subscribing to my channel over there. YouTube has already deleted some of my videos, and they have set precedent for deleting entire channels before, so if you want to stay on top of things, definitely subscribe over there, even if you don't watch videos there. And then I do also have a Patreon page. My patrons are really what allowed me to be able to put 1,000 rounds through this thing, and I even had to reload to be able to still keep it cost effective. And it was able to shoot my reloads, so it's got to be able to shoot anything. But again, the people over there are really doing a lot to support this channel. I upload all my content there early. I do some exclusive content, as well as doing live streams, giveaways, all that fun stuff. So again, if you feel so inclined, definitely check it out. Links will be below. But again, if you're looking at one of these, there's really just nothing else that really quite holds a candle to an MP5. So anyway, with all that said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.